Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel where we talk about Hungarian true crime cases, murders, mysteries and conspiracies. So if you like this kind of content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss my next video. Today we are covering the murder case of Judith Barsi, or Barsi Judith, and her mother. And maybe you know this case already, it's quite well known. And it actually happened in Los Angeles, not in Hungary. But the reason why I'm covering it is because, as you can see, the victims were Hungarian immigrants. Let's talk about her parents first. So her father was Barsi József, and her mother was Virovac Mária. And they were both Hungarian immigrants in the USA. They escaped to New York and then later California after the Hungarian Revolution of 1956. Now, this revolution was against the Soviet oppression, the Hungarian government and their communist policies. And in the end, the Soviet Union beat the Hungarian people in this uprising, and they captured about 26,000 people, most of which were sent to prison or labor camps, and about 300 people were executed. Not only that, about 200,000 people actually escaped to other countries like the USA, Canada, Australia, and other countries in Western Europe. I myself have family members who escaped in 1956. So both of her parents immigrated to the USA at separate times. Her father actually first went to New York and then went to California. I think her mother went to California straight away. And they met in a restaurant where her mother worked as a waitress. Both of them were married before, and after they met in this restaurant, they started dating and eventually they married. And in 1978, they welcomed this baby girl on June 6th. Now, little Judith was an extremely beautiful and talented little girl, so her mother decided to start preparing her for movies and commercials, and that's what happened. When she was 5 years old, an agent discovered her in an ice skating rink, and she went on to play some big roles in movies. She played the role of Kimberly McDonald in a movie called Fatal Vision. She played in Jaws: The Revenge. She was also the voice of Ducky in The Land Before Times and the voice of Anne-Marie in All Dogs Go to Heaven. Besides, she was also in about 70 commercials. So you can see she was very popular and successful in this field, and when she was only 10 years old, she already made about $100,000 a year. Now, you would assume that parents keep or invest this kind of money for their daughter when she grows up, so she would be able to pay her education or start her own life. But no, her parents decided to buy a 3-story huge house, almost like a mansion in Los Angeles. I'm sure her parents saved some of the money, but buying a big house from the money that your little girl is making, that's kind of shady. What was notable about her is that she was very short for her age. When she was 10, she was about 112 centimeters or about 3'8". And I relate to that. I was probably even shorter when I was 10, but that's beside the point. So, because she looked so young and petite, she usually played the roles of much younger characters. She played like 7 or 8-year-old characters. She even got hormone injections for her shortness, but we never got to see how that would play out because of her untimely death. Unfortunately, József was a raging, violent kind of alcoholic, and as little Judith's career progressed, his alcohol problems also got worse and worse. According to the sources, he physically, mentally, and emotionally abused both of his daughter and his wife. And this abuse wasn't even really a secret. Maria told all of her friends about the abuse at home, and because she said it with so much casualty in her voice, she said it with so much normalcy that her friends never really did anything because they didn't realize the severity of the situation. As much as I know, they encouraged her to leave the marriage at best, but they never really took action to help her get out of this relationship. And also little Judith told all of her friends about how her father was tossing cooking pots and cooking pans and other objects at her. And at one point in 1986, the mother actually reported József to the authorities finally. However, the police could not see any physical evidence or symptoms of this domestic violence, so they didn't do anything. This is just one of the crazy examples of how authorities let down abuse victims. The police should have investigated further despite seeing or not seeing physical evidence of abuse. There is so many ways of abusing someone. It doesn't have to be bruises or wounds on a person's body. Now, after this incident with the police, József supposedly stopped drinking so much. However, his abuse and violence did not decrease at all. He threatened his wife and his daughter that he would cut their throats and burn the house on them if they ever tried to leave him. He was this emotionally manipulative person who threatened to kill himself so that he could chain his family to him if they ever tried to leave him. He went as far as to one day hide a telegram that Maria got from her family member. As you see, one of Maria's relatives died back in Hungary, and they let her know so that she could attend the funeral. However, József took this telegram before Maria could see it and hid it from her so that she wouldn't be able to take the chance and leave the country and leave him behind. As a result of this abuse at home, little Judith started gaining weight and she started exhibiting strange and disturbing behavior from such a little girl. She started plucking out her own eyelash and eyebrow hairs. She started plucking out the whiskers of her cat, which is, by the way, a condition called trichotillomania. If that's how you pronounce it, I think that's it. And in 1988, poor little Judith broke down in front of her agent, who finally took her to a child psychiatrist. And this psychiatrist was able to diagnose mental and physical abuse on the little girl. And that is when Child Protective Services finally tried to intervene. However, CPS stopped the investigation on the domestic violence charge because Maria was able to convince these officials that she was already in the midst of divorcing. She had all the divorce papers ready. She said that she had this apartment set up for her where she could escape with her daughter. And because of this, the CPS was like, okay, then if you are in the midst of divorcing, then we don't need to investigate domestic violence any further. Which is just stupid to me, because CPS of all people should know that there are abuse victims who are in this denial about their situation, or they are mentally conditioned to stay in this relationship and will defend their abusers. I don't know what the fuck CPS was really thinking, oh, okay, so you're divorcing? Okay, then I guess that solves everything, then we are not gonna investigate any further, bye. Or what? What the fuck were they thinking? Now let's get on to the tragic ending of this story. On a Wednesday in July 27th in 1988, the family's next door neighbor called the fire brigade because he heard a loud explosion coming from the Barsi's family home, and he also saw fire. So the firemen came, they put out the fire, and unfortunately they found 3 dead bodies in the remains of the home. The police was able to retrace the events of the crime, and through forensic testing they were able to figure that 2 days earlier, on the 25th of July, Barsi József went into his daughter's room and shot her in the head while she was asleep in her own bed. Of course, Maria heard the loud gunshot and she woke up and started running towards the room of her daughter. And that is when József shot her in the chest or in the back while she was running down the hallway. And this sick man lived with the dead bodies of her own family that he killed for 2 days, when he poured gasoline on the bodies and everywhere around the house. Then he set it on fire and he shot himself in the head in the garage. On the 9th of August in 1988, little Judith and her mother were put to rest in an unmarked grave in Forest Lawn Memorial Park, which is in Los Angeles. And around 16 years later, in 2004, Judith's fans decided to purchase new headstones for her and for her mother. And Judith's headstone reads, "In memory of the lovely Judith Eva Barsi, our concrete angel, yap yap yap." And this was a reference to her character, Ducky, from the movie The Land Before Times. Ducky was reportedly her favorite character that she ever played or gave her voice to. Sadly, both the movies The Land Before Times and All Dogs Go to Heaven were released after her death. And Don Bluth, the director of both movies, said that she was one of the best little girls to work with. She understood all instructions at all times. She always put 100% into her work, even when she was tired. Unfortunately, we never got to see how far she could have gone in this industry. Now, this is not the end of the story yet, because 19 years later, the Bernal family purchased the home. And they did not know of the history of this house, allegedly, but they soon started reporting strange events, like the garage door opening and closing by itself, or having cold spots in the house, that the person who was sleeping in little Judith's old room was having terrible nightmares every night. So they even went on this reality show called The Murder House Flip, where they got their house renovated. Like, they just brought more light into the room, they put some nice chandeliers, they painted the walls, put bright and colorful pictures, and apparently that got rid of all of the haunting. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I believe that after such a tragic murder, a house can become haunted, but I am not sure how much this family sensationalized it. I don't believe that they did not know of the murders. Anybody would have known of the murders that happened in the house. I really feel like they probably purchased the home and went on this famous reality show to benefit off of it. But let me know what you think. And that is that for this case. However, I think I can provide some additional insight that you wouldn't otherwise know coming from a Hungarian. Now, I am not justifying what József did to his family. He was a terrible man. He was a terrible, awful, abusive, alcoholic murderer. And there is nothing nice to say about him at all. However, I have to say that he lived most of his life in socialist, communist Hungary, and he lived through all the bullshit. He was probably born during or very soon after the Second World War. Hungary was poor, starvation, poverty, misery was all that there was in our country for about 80 years, really. If he decided to escape and emigrate to the USA, then that means to me that he must have felt threatened or persecuted enough that he saw no other choice but to leave this country and go as far as he possibly could in the hopes for a better future. So, unfortunately, domestic violence was not really a rare occurrence in Hungary at the time. It was more like the normal. And people did not really know how to cope with their emotions and these traumas that communism imposed on us. And most men turned to alcohol or other kind of drugs to deal with their feelings. So I understand how he ended up where he ended up. He probably had untreated mental illness too, if he felt like the only way to manage his family was to murder them. I don't even know of a concrete reason or motive why he killed his family. I don't know, I would like to see into his head and understand his thoughts. It's unjustifiable regardless. And as for Maria and why she did not get out of this abusive relationship, I am pretty sure you already know, if you watch any kind of true crime videos, that abusive relationships don't work the way other relationships work, the person who is into them is manipulated into thinking that they would not survive without the other person, and that their only choice is to stay in this marriage or in this relationship. They are probably threatened to be killed, or somebody they love to be killed if they ever try to reach out to somebody. And it's more like a prison than a relationship, really. And Maria also grew up in communist Hungary, and it was, and unfortunately it still is, the normal in Hungarian women's mind that we are born to serve men. And life in Eastern Europe is nothing like in the Western world. We are still conditioned to serve men, that we are supposed to do all the housework, all the cooking, that we leave our jobs as soon as we have kids. It's not the same as in America, as far as I can tell. And it was definitely not the case when she was a young woman. And I really believe that she was brought up to not leave men, that she was supposed to stay and serve men. I'm really sorry that all of this happened and they should not have died. I feel so bad for little Judith, that she had so much ahead of her and everybody let her down. Let me know what you think of this case. Do you have any additional information, something that you would like to share? Do you have any requests for future content? And if you do, don't forget to let me know down in the comments section. Also, if you engage, that really helps me out with the algorithm. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss out on my next video either. Thanks for watching. Bye!